Well, the Senedd will give its final approval to the new Homelessness bill this week. But last week, MSs were voting on amendments to it. 90 amendments were proposed to the bill, and 14 of the votes on them were tied, meaning that Owyth had no choice but to use the casting vote to refuse the amendments and maintain the status quo. Well, Katie Dalton is Director of Cymorth Cymru, the representative body for providers of homelessness, housing and support services in Wales, and she's here to tell me how disappointed she is that those amendments failed. Good morning.
Bore da, Vaughan.
When we're talking about amendments, some amendments are just sort of tidying up language and things like that. Were these amendments that actually would have made a difference to the bill?
Yes, absolutely. Just firstly, it's important to say that the bill is generally excellent. It's a groundbreaking piece of legislation that will do an awful lot to help prevent and end homelessness. However, we believe that it could be strengthened further, and we'd worked with a number of opposition members of the Senedd to put forward amendments that would have done so, and those included protections for victims of abuse. There are risks within the legislation that they could fall foul through some of the new rules that are being brought in, and potentially lose access to accommodation and support, and we wanted to make sure there were safeguards in there. There was also some strengthening of the protocols for people with the most complex support needs. So it was things like that, real impactful things that would affect people's lives.
Just to sort of paint a real life situation. So the amendments, for instance, if you had someone, a woman or a man who suffered abuse, they may be in a bad mental state, they may lose their temper, they may lose their rag, they may chuck things about a bit, and the amendments would say, well, normally that would be a reason to stop giving support, but because of the circumstances, you have to take those circumstances into account.
100%. And we know so much more now about the impacts of trauma on people's lives, on how their brain develops, on their emotional regulation. So it's a very well understood issue that people who've experienced trauma can sometimes react badly in situations where they feel under threat. And you would absolutely understand that being the case for a survivor of abuse. So, the Welsh Government argued that they were happy to deal with these things in guidance. We are not convinced that that would be strong enough.
The amendments would have passed had two MSs been present, namely Laura Ann Jones from Reform and Jane Dodds from the Liberal Democrats. We asked Laura Ann Jones for a comment. We didn't get one. Jane Dodds, we got a response from the Liberal Democrats saying she was at a prior engagement and couldn't pair, this system where you pair with someone else because she isn't a member of a group. And we sort of asked then, well, what was the prior engagement? Were you just showing the Senny Bridge WI around the Senedd, or was it something important? And after we asked that, she did offer an apology, saying that maybe it was a mistake, although she will be there for the final vote. But your point would be that makes no difference because everyone will vote for it in the final vote.
Yeah, the final vote is a simple yes or no. The stage 3 vote, which happened on Tuesday evening, was the one where, as you said, there was 90 amendments. That was the final opportunity for members of the Senedd to strengthen the bill. And for me, we couldn't believe it, to be honest. We saw the vote on the first group of amendments went to a tied vote, and we were desperately, me and other colleagues in the homelessness sector, trying to work out who was there, who'd voted. And as you said, we saw that there was a couple of people missing. So, we had people trying to get in contact and urge people to get there.
Well, it was literally, I'm on the phone to Jane Dodds now, she's not picking up type
absolutely. And we'd emailed all of those MSs in advance to say this is going to be a really close vote. There is an opportunity to defeat the government, and in the lead up, I guess, to an election, that's, a kind of rare chance for celebration for opposition MSs, but also that these are really important amendments, and this is an explanation, a briefing behind them. Please do be there to vote. So we tried to make them aware that it was going to be really close. And to be honest, I was gobsmacked. I've been around a long time, working on policy and legislation, and I've never been in this situation where, due to a couple of people not turning up, it's gone to a tied vote and fell. And it's 3.5 years of work, from people like myself and Welsh Government, but also, really importantly, over 300 people with lived experience contributed to this, and it's their views and experiences that we were trying to reflect in those amendments.
I suppose if you were searching for good news in this, you know, it's that there is a consensus that the bill will go through, which suggests whichever sort of government we have after next May, when they come to sort of writing the guidance and the secondary legislation, they may well think, well, you know, these are things we voted for, you know, only a couple of months ago. Obviously, we're going to put them in the guidance.
Hopefully so. And to be fair, I've received an email apology from Jane Dodds where she's apologised for not being there. She's committed to working with us to make sure that, although those amendments didn't pass in law, that they apply in practice. I think for those of us in the homelessness sector, we've spoken to so many people who've gone through the system where the guidance has said one thing and the practice has been different. And I've spoken to survivors of domestic abuse who've fallen foul of various elements of the homelessness system, and they absolutely should not have, and that's been really clear in guidance. So, you know, we're nervous about it being in guidance. We're nervous about the different interpretation across 22 local authorities, and that's what the difference could have been on Tuesday night.
Katie Dalton, thank you very much indeed for coming in this morning.